Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We rented movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feeling bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey.
Hey, Evelyn, can I ask you a question? You got a moment? Mm-hmm. Which team do you play for?
Well, I'm a peach.
Well, I was just wondering, because I couldn't figure out why you would throw home when we've got a 2-run lead. You let the tying run get on second, and we lost the lead because of you. Now you start using your head. That's that lump that's 3 feet above your ass. Are you crying?
No.
Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Why don't you leave her alone, Jimmy?
Oh, you zip it, Doris.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Santa's podcast, your favorite podcast where 2 sweetie sisters do a show from their mom's basement. Cool. I'm Sweetie.
And I'm Sweetie.
And yeah, I didn't lie just there. We're again in our mom's basement.
Oh my God.
This is like our second recording studio.
Third, because sometimes we record at your apartment.
Oh,
also.
yeah. Okay. So I guess it's like number 3. Last time we recorded here, we did Karate Kid, which was an excellent episode. One of my favorites if you haven't listened to it. And I think this one's also going to be one of my favorites. Because it's a really good movie.
Wow. A lot of pressure. A lot of pressure over here.
So it's summertime. That's why we're down at our mom's house.
Summertime.
Summertime. And we thought a perfect movie to go with the summertime theme is everyone's, well, maybe everyone's favorite movie about baseball. Who knows? It's definitely mine. It's
mine is Summer Catch. Actually, no, just kidding. I'm kidding. It's the worst movie ever.
Anyway, it is A League of Their Own.
Batter
up, hear that call. The time has come for one and all to play ball.
Go work on our harmonies.
We're the members of the All-American League. We come from cities near and far. We got Canadians, Irish ones, and Swedes. We're one for one.
We're all for one. We're
Wait,
all
we're one for one.
American. We're one for all. We're all for one. Like Three Musketeers.
I said
We're all no
selfish. That's a teamwork.
We're all American. I love that when like the model, I mean the former Miss Georgia always starts the song and she's like, the time has come. She like gets really like bluesy with it. I like it.
I want to say her name is Sue Ellen, but it's not. It's like Sue
Ellen.
Is it Sue Ellen?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Because Rosie was always like, Sue Ellen, Sue Ellen.
I know.
Look good to me. Look good to me.
Look good to me, Sue Ellen. It's like the most butchest Rosie O'Donnell you've ever seen in your life.
Look good to me. Look good to me, Sue Ellen. A lot of emotions at the end. A lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Woo. All right. Yeah. We were trying to think if we saw this in the theater or not. You thought maybe you did. I don't think I did, but always on another one that was always on TV. I actually recently watched this on the plane ride over to LA when we were the way back, but I slept through most of it because I was tired. It was a red eye. And Sweetie thought she had watched it on the plane, but she was just watching my screen and then with no the sound off.
So I know this movie so well that watching it without sound is still like watching it because like I know all the lines. It was pretty crazy, and I still cried at all the same parts that I always cry at.
Always.
So it's totally the same thing. So it's an amazing Penny Marshall directed film from 1992, period piece, if you will, from World War II. And we'll go into the plot, but it's about the women's, historically, a very accurate women's baseball league that, you know, the guys went off to war and then they still wanted to make money, so they decided to do this league of women playing baseball. totally unheard of. Women didn't play sports. You know, this is before Title IX, and we had to have where we have all these rules now that there has to be equivalent, you know, games for men and women and leagues for men and women. But yeah, so good. And it's like, I think Penny Marshall actually hasn't directed that much stuff when I looked at her IMDb. But one of our favorites of hers, which we already covered, Big. And she uses like a lot of the same actors in it, which is such a treat.
Well, 2.
Just 2? I thought there were more.
Just 2.
Oh, and well, we were watching this with my mom and her husband, and they noticed that so many people were either in Happy Days or Laverne and Shirley, which were both things she was involved in. So I think she uses a lot of people, and her daughter's in this. Yep. So she uses a lot of people she knows, which is, I totally am behind that strategy. But yeah, I think it's just like, I'm sure most people have seen this, but I think we should just go into the plot and move from there as we normally do.
Batter up. Batter up.
It's time for the sweetie synopsis. Yeah, sweeties. There's no crying in baseball.
Dottie Henson and her sister Kit Keller live on a farm with their parents in Oregon, somewhere in bumfuck Oregon, and they're on a baseball team, the Lukash Dairy. Oh, I guess it's Lukash or Luca, whatever. Yeah. Lukash
Good
Dairy,
memory.
Lukash, Oregon. So they work at the Lukash Dairy, and they so it's a baseball team, and they play on that. And there's
what's cool is that softball. I just want to tell you,
right?
It's baseball where they pitch like whatever the pitching style is, whatever that's called. Pitching.
Real pitching. Whatever that is.
And they use a small ball.
Yeah. It's legit. So there's a scout there, John Lovitz, who I never remember his character's name. But he's scouting girls for the new All-American Girls Pro Baseball League. AAGPL. GPL.
Like annoying.
There's a lot of letters, and it's annoying that they call them girls. Yes, which I thought the whole time.
There's so much, like, watching this now and where we are today with women's rights and feminism and stuff like that. I mean, this movie was very big for feminism in a lot of ways because you're talking about women playing baseball, right? But there's just so much stuff in there, and we'll go into it later. But it's just like, it makes my skin crawl. Anyway,
so he sees Dottie, and she's like an amazing baseball player. She's the star of the team. She like hits the run that wins the game for them,
and gorgeous to boot.
And gorgeous. So that's what they're looking for this All-American Girls League. And her sister, her kid sister Kit, is attractive enough, but that wasn't the greatest showing of her skills because she wasn't pitching that day. She's usually a pitcher. So the scout goes to the farm and tries to recruit them, and they're like, Dottie's like, I don't really want to. He tries to recruit Dottie. He really only wants Dottie. But Kit really wants to go because she sees it as her ticket out of the farm and the being stuck in Oregon and doing nothing life. But the scout says she can't come unless she gets Dottie to go. So she has a talking to Dottie, and she's like, you have your whole life to have babies and have kids. Like, just do this one thing to say you did it. Because Dottie's married and her husband's away at war. So she's like, feels she has this stupid obligation to be a wife.
She has this insane talent. Yeah. Like, she's so good at baseball. She's a catcher. And she's phenomenal. And she's like, well, I feel like this is my duty, even though my husband isn't here. And I'm like setting the table for my like parents like,
who are like 80 years old. Yeah. Their parents are so old.
So old.
How old do you think Dottie is?
You never get a good idea of the ages in this. But I guess you have to remember that people got married so young.
So I was thinking early 20s, and Kit was probably like 18.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right, so Dottie finally agrees to go in the end. So they run to the train, and then he makes another stop in Colorado for another girl who is Marla Hooch. And she, why is that? Why does he do that? The announcer. That's
I don't
the
know.
part where the announcer, like, I thought it was because he was like tripping over her. So Marla is notoriously like not attractive looking, and she almost doesn't make it on the team because the scout guy's like, oh, we can only have pretty girls on the baseball team. Like, she's not going to cut it. But then Dottie and Kit are like, we're not coming if she doesn't come. Like, that's bullshit. So finally he takes her in the end. And you know what? She goes to beauty school and she comes out pretty sweet, pretty like nice looking.
She is the only one that ends up getting a boyfriend out of the whole year. So take that, people who didn't think she was attractive.
Bitches. So they get Marla and then they go to Chicago where the tryouts are. And so the guy who's kind of putting this together is Harvey. What's his first name?
Mr. Harvey.
Mr. Harvey, who makes Harvey bars.
Chocolate. And I guess historically it was, you looked this up, right? It was Wrigley's chewing gum, who has Wrigley Field. So they based and all the teams are based in the Midwest. Once they do get all the teams. Yeah. So it's what are they? The Rockford Peaches, Rockford, Illinois, Racine Bells, Kenosha Kickers. Just kidding. That's another movie.
Comment. I think they were the comments.
Yeah.
But
so they're Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Minnesota. Yeah. So
tryouts.
Yeah. So they have the tryouts. What happens at tryouts?
Yeah. So they meet a bunch of other girls, and it's I forgot what the odds were. There was 100.
20 girls went home.
Yeah. So there was 100 girls there or so, and 64 teams, or something. 64 girls make the teams.
That's a lot of teams.
Yeah.
64. I think 20 went home.
So they do all little drills and stuff like that. It's a really fun day, and then they put these lists up, and if your name's on the list, then you make it. So both Kit and Dottie make it to be a Rockford Peach. I'm a peach. And that's funny when that scene happens, because it's not like Dottie asks did I make it?
I know.
She knew.
And Kit doesn't tell her. She's and you are too.
Did I make it? Hello. So they put on this team, and then after that, they kind of get a feel of what this is actually going to be like. So they are playing baseball, yes, but they have to do it in these tiny little uniforms. So this girl trots out as this little model in this tiny little skirt. It's like a baseball uniform with a mini skirt and a hat and stuff, but it's really just degrading. And all the girls are like, fuck no, I'm not wearing that. So good for them. And also, this was 1943. Yep. So kind of a buttoned up time. This wasn't, this is kind of inappropriate. But they're like, if you don't wear this outfit, you can't play. I have 30 girls who just left who would totally take your spot. And so they're like, fine, fine.
Additionally, you're going to have to take beauty lessons and manner lessons, finishing school.
And you can't drink.
No men,
or smoke, or have any men. So they're supposed to be very ladylike. So they want them to be, lady in the streets, but a freak on the field. I said, yeah.
Strange. Not sure if they were thinking that along those exact lines, but it's that whole bullshit sexism. They want to give women this shot, but they don't want them to get too much power, so they need to keep them in their place as women, being pretty and dainty and whatever, and still, because it's too threatening if women are actually good at playing baseball. They have to wear dresses, so they're not.
Well, then did you remember that part where there's the radio show, and those very conservative church ladies are like, the men are gone and the women are taking over. What's gonna happen when the men come back? The women are all emasculated and masculine and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, blow me, sister.
Which, I'd like to point out, there were no lesbians that I could see. I mean, I'm sure there were, but they didn't. That is interesting. They didn't have a side plot.
That Rosie O'Donnell character brings her girlfriend to the reunion later.
Right. That would have made sense to me.
Me too.
And I think I feel like Alice, the one that they're always making fun of, I feel like she was totally
the Canadian?
a lesbian. Yeah. I don't know. But anyways,
yeah. And then so side plot, sort of that so they have to get coaches for these. So one of the coaches is this not recovered alcoholic old player, Jimmy Dugan, played by the wonderful Tom Hanks, and he has just had a lot of problems. He drinks too much and just fucks around. He was a really good player at one point, but is a little bit washed up.
Fell out of a window when he was drunk because of a fire he set and broke his leg or whatever.
Just
so he's got a limp, so he can't play.
So anymore. Mr. Harvey, played by Gary Marshall, is listen, you're a good guy. You're a good guy, but you're not playing baseball anymore. I'd like to give you one more shot, coach this women's baseball league. And he's like, girls can't play baseball, and gets so pissed, but he takes the job anyway because he's gonna get paid, right? So the girls get their first game. They're super excited, and they get to the stadium, and there's 5 people there, and they're laughing at them. People are like, girls can't play baseball, and these girls fucking kick some ass. They're so good.
Can you actually throw the ball?
Yeah, it's just, it's really sad. And Jimmy doesn't think they can either, right? So he shows up wasted to the game. There's this great scene where he rolls into the locker room, and obviously had a late night out drinking, and goes and pees in the toilet for like 3 minutes, and they time it. And Doris is like, "Give me your watch, May. Give me your watch. I want to time him." So great. So he doesn't care. He just passes out in the dugout, and then the girls have their first game, and they do really well. And it's an awesome game, but like no one's really there. Yeah. But the seed is sort of planted that these girls mean business. This isn't a joke. This isn't, sissies playing baseball, as they say. And the movie marches on as this kind of the season goes on, and they play all these games.
On it goes, and it gets more and more popular, and the games pick up, and people really start coming. So eventually, I mean, all this other stuff happens, but we won't get into the details because it's kind of all a lot of like vignettes.
Yeah, I'd just say the main thing, the competition.
Yeah. So, but as this is happening, Kit and Dottie kind of are having this struggle as siblings, where Kit has always felt kind of second best and always overshadowed by Dottie, her beautiful, amazing sister. So she's always kind of bratty and just always feels like Dottie's holding her back. So
she's holding herself back. Sorry.
In an effort to fix things, Dottie asks them to trade her to a different team. By her, she means herself. But unfortunately, they trade Kit to another team, and Kit freaks out, so they have kind of a falling out. As luck would have it, those two teams make it to the World Series at the end of the movie. So it's Dottie versus Kit. And so the games happen.
The other title of this movie that got shut down.
Dottie v. Kit. 1943. So they go, and it's neck and neck, and then there's this last game that will decide who wins. And it comes down to Dottie, like, Kit's pitching, and she's getting kind of like tired, and Dottie comes to the plate and just like smacks the ball out and gets 3 runs in, so it's all tied up. Kit has to go up to bat in the next inning, and then Dottie tells the pitcher, like, hit him high.
She loves the high ones.
Yeah, high and fast. She can't lay off the high ones. Because that's like Kit's like Achilles heel. So, but she ends up hitting it anyways, which good for her. She overcame her struggle there. And she rounds the bases, and then the last thing is she runs into Dottie's, like, catches the ball. So if you run into the catcher and they drop the ball, you score. Yeah. And we had seen Dottie do this play many times, or like at least once before, and she held on to that ball even through a really hard hit. And this time she lets it go. And then so Racine, Kit's team, wins. And then it's all exciting. Well, they're excited. We as the viewers are very upset because we followed the Rockford Peaches the whole way, and now they fucking lost. But Dottie's happy because her sister finally felt like she did something on her own, and that she won, and she was the superstar. So their relationship is kind of patched up, but Dottie's going to go. She's not going to play again next season. She's going to go home to her husband, Bob, and have babies.
Yeah. And then this part of the movie is actually a whole flashback. So the movie, we missed this part, kind of starts with Dottie as an older woman, very reluctant to go to this, like 50, well, I don't even know how many, was it probably like 50 years, let's say?
Yeah, but they're opening the special section of the baseball Hall of Fame.
So in Cooperstown, New York, there's a section for this, 10 years or so that they had this women's only game or league. And so she's really reluctant to go, and her daughter is like, "You're going, like, I don't care. That was such a great time for you, blah, blah, blah." And I guess her husband had died like 6 months before or something. So she goes, and the movie starts, and she's like looking at the baseball diamond as all old women are playing. And then and then it flashes. Then you're in 1943. Yeah. So then at the end of the movie, Kit wins. They get on the bus, like everyone goes their separate ways, and then it goes back to the present again. So it's Dottie looking at the field, and she goes up to all her teammates, and it's everyone. They do this amazing job of finding people who looked exactly like the younger actors. So it's like almost like you have to be like, wait, is that them in makeup or not? But they look so good, it's not makeup. Yeah. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So then they go to the opening of the Hall of Fame, and they see even more people, and it's the part where I cry the most every time. Yeah. And
wait, what? Where?
And when they go to the Hall of Fame.
And just see all the pictures, just like all that whole scene. You just cry. Yeah. And then I cry when Kit like comes around the corner with her family, and then I think, and we talked about this a bit. Well, there was some discussion, but they definitely had seen each other in between. It wasn't like the first time they saw each other since then, but it was just because they were in this moment of this time in their life that all these things happened. That it was just like really special. So they have a reunion and they hug, and they're like, "Oh, remember this?"
And I think it was really the best time of their lives.
It was, however much Dottie fucking wants to deny it.
Yeah, and I also got teary watching it this time because I was like, man, like that fucking sucks that you like we're dragged out of the kitchen and we're dragged out of your normal kind of were duties that you always knew that you would have just because that was the tradition and what you would. But for this one brief moment, like, you didn't have to do it. Yeah. And then that they were just like, after that, they were just like, oh no, like back to being like, you know, not like second class citizens. That's not the right word. But like, okay, back to the kitchen with you. And it just made me cry. But
not really. No, because the league went on for many years after that. Like they weren't like spotlight lit anymore.
No, but that was only like their one moment, and it wasn't like you know, that you can't be ball players. Like, remember when Kit wins and the girls come up to her and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You want to be a ball player? Those girls aren't going to be ball players. You fucking can't. It's so sad.
Oh yeah, it's very
I'm sorry. And baseball, like, well, any ones that are still like, well, any really like professional sports are all so male dominated that you don't have the ability to have that kind of success. Because they, like, remember there's that thing when like the women's hockey players were asking for a salary equivalent to the men, and people are like, good luck getting that. Like, no one comes to your games. That's why they're not going to pay you anything. And I was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that business rationale, I guess, but like, maybe obviously they're not going to make money right away being like a newer sport and drumming up.
The male players don't need to make as much money as they do.
Right. Spread it around.
Whatever. Yeah, it's crazy, but
women's soccer is like that too. And what's ironic about that is that women's soccer in the U.S. is like, I feel like way more popular than the men's. The women are more famous than the men.
Well, I feel like I only watch soccer during the Olympics anyways. So,
but I think more people know women's soccer players, the U.S. ones, not like, I'm not talking about international here. Oh. Then can you name anyone on the men's soccer team?
Is David Beckham still on the men's soccer team?
No, for U.S.
Yeah,
like
he
US.
used to play for the LA Galaxy.
Well, but he's British. Let's say, like,
but he was on an American team.
Let's say Americans.
No.
Well, like, remember like Mia Hamm?
Yes, I remember the women. Yeah.
Brandy,
but that's because they were all at the Olympics.
And they won big.
I know, but I'm saying, like, I think the Olympics are a big part. Like, one of the main times that women really get to shine is at the Olympics. And I wish that it would happen more frequently and that they would be. And what was that great quote that Serena Williams said? Like, if I was a man, I would have been called the greatest like years ago. But
yeah,
it's just bullshit.
Sports is going to always be frustrating, I think, for women, just because we're so behind the, you know, because yes, we have all these sports now and that's so great, but we're starting from so behind the line, in terms of like that it just haven't been around that long, you know. So it's going to take a while to get there. So girls, you hold on, you keep going. You could be a superstar in sports if you want.
Yes,
to.
yes.
But yeah, such a good movie. Oh my God, you laugh, you cry. You know, you want to play baseball. Just kidding, you don't.
Baseball is hard.
Baseball is really
hard.
I
already told that story about how the gym teacher made me like swing until I hit the ball, you know. It just brings back bad memories. But I used to love watching baseball in the summer when I was little. Red Sox.
Yeah.
I used to watch that.
I liked the game. I went to the Red Sox game a couple weeks ago, and I truly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's fun.
It was an exciting game.
It's fun.
It's not exciting out, like, I would say baseball is one of the most boring games, but when it gets down to the clincher like that, and it's just like they're one run and they only need one, you know, that's fucking exciting.
Totes.
Anyway, so yeah, fantastic film. I am sure you have seen it. If you have not, please see it immediately. So yeah, what do we want to talk about first? I think I just wanted, and we always miss this little section, and I want to keep sure we keep going back to it, of our Sweetie alum. I think let's just get that out of the way, because there's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot in this movie. So, and I put alums. Oh, I guess there's only 2 in here of how many movies they've been that we've watched.
John Lovitz.
So Gena Davis, first off, has been now in this is her 3rd movie that we have covered with her in it. So Beetlejuice, Earth Girls Are Easy, this one. Tom Hanks, our 2nd big League of Their Own. Gary Marshall, Penny Marshall's brother, also Mr. Harvey, also that guy in Hocus Pocus who's the devil.
But not, yeah.
John Lovitz, also in Big, and in this movie. The doctor from Look Who's Talking, who Sweetie thinks looks like a giant baby.
It's true.
He's the coach of the Racine Bells. And last but not least, Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure is...
And the Little Giants.
Oh my God, I missed that one. Is Stillwell Angel.
Stillwell Angel. Weirdest name ever. I meant to look that up. What are the origins where other people name that name? Yeah, a lot of alums. So I wanted to talk about the thing that always sticks out the most to me in this movie is that so they get this old lady to play Gena Davis, who looks remarkably like Gena Davis, so much so that our mother's husband was like, that's Gena Davis. And we were like, no, Phil, it's not Gena Davis.
Yeah, we've looked at this up.
Yeah, we looked it up. It's an actress named this. He's like, nope, that's Gena Davis. And we're like, no, it's not. And the reason why it's so confusing is because for some reason they dubbed this old lady's voice with Gena Davis's actual voice. And they said they did the same thing with the old lady that plays Kit. They dubbed Lori Petty's voice. But I don't realize that as much. Like, it's not, maybe she doesn't say enough
barely
lines.
Speaks. Yeah.
But it doesn't sound that much like her.
This one was
for some reason so
distracting.
In my head I'm like spinning this yarn about how they must have done that because this old lady's voice must have been like, hello,
right.
I'm Gena Davis.
Right. What if it was really high or really low?
Hello.
Or what if she didn't speak English? I don't know.
I know there were a lot of possibilities.
Had a weird accent.
It was, but they don't do that with any of the other old women. So it's very strange that they made that decision.
And growing up, I always thought they just put makeup on Gena Davis.
Yes, it's a common misconception because of the dubbed voice. Yeah. But so if I had one wish regarding this movie, it would be to call Penny Marshall up and be like, yo, why did you have to? Totally. Why did you make that decision? Yeah. It's like the world's biggest question to me currently in my life right now. As of yesterday. So good times, but weird. Super weird.
So weird. Yeah, that always bugged me too. I mean, I love Gena Davis in this. She's so good. She's so beautiful. I would say this is peak Gena Davis hotness. She is gorgeous in this. She's like a model. Her face is so even.
This time it was the eyebrows that were really like giving me the shivers. I was just like, dang, you got some nice brows, girl.
But her face is just so classic, and she's so tall and just so pretty. And you really do see in the beginning how frustrating that must have been to have this older sister like that, who is not only beautiful but so talented and a nice person too. I mean, there was like literally no bad qualities about that woman. So that would be frustrating. Well, I get it.
I mean, I can relate to that because
of course you can.
No, because our oldest sister Liz is like always been. She's very beautiful. Blah blah blah. Yes, we know. Yes, it's true. It's true. But it would be annoying because people would always be obsessed with her. And I feel like, and I always also, and it was also annoying to me because I had a lot of like very attractive friends, and it was always a thing where like your friends always get noticed at parties. Like in college, like my best friend always got hit on by like cute guys, and I get stuck with like their fat friend and be like, cool, life is great.
Oh, I've always been the B. I've always been the B friend my whole life.
So it's the same thing.
I've just like absorbed that now. I think it's kind of fun to be a B friend.
But Kit has a really hard time with it, and yes, it's super annoying. But, and I think this is especially happening on this rewatch as we're older, and we just don't have patience for shit like this. But like, she is so obnoxious in this, and just such a brat, and just whining all the time.
And Dottie is so nice to her. There's not one moment where Dottie is not nice to her or mean or trying to help her out, and she blames Dottie for everything. That's classic, like someone who just can't look in the mirror and be like, wow, I think the trouble's with me, and it has to be someone else's fault, right? Like, I know a lot of people like that. And it is, I think you're totally hitting the nail on the head when it's like, okay, I think we're older now, and we're like, come on, kid, like, get your shit together. And she was 18 though; she was young. Yes. I mean, you have to understand her age, and she was from this little sheltered town, and that's all she knew. And I'm hopefully they had talks a couple Christmases later, and Kit was older, and she's like, hey, listen, I'm sorry I was an asshole.
I hope so. I don't know. I feel like they may have closed the chapter on this part of their life when Dottie left. Yeah. And I don't know if Kit maybe wanted, and it was in the 40s, so it's not like you had email communication or whatever. Right. And if Dottie moved back to Oregon and Kit stayed in Chicago, then they probably didn't get to talk too much, and that's really sad. And what was that line that Dottie says at the end when you squeezed my hand and you were like, oh, we did the sweetie squeeze.
I only have one sister.
Oh yeah. Well, I have. How many sisters do you think I got? And we like squeezed hands, and we did the sweetie squeeze, which is when we hold hands and then go. Ee.
I mean, they'll always be close, and it was a shame, and I mean, stuff worked out because Dottie finally was. But it's not that she always was trying to help her out, but she finally realized one way that she could really help her out by not being as good, which is sad that she had to do that. And that's debatable.
Well, we'll talk about it. Yeah, it's the great debate.
But great, like, sister, like, movie, which I think if you have a sister, you can relate to this on many levels.
And it touches
even
you.
Even a brother could, if you have brothers too.
But really, yeah, the end of this movie is like so many emotions, and I was just feeling them all. And like you're like happy because there's this great thing with the women's pro league, and then the sister reunion, and then you find out that what's her face, terrible ball player, died.
Yep.
Stillwell's mom, Evelyn, died. You see her cut out, and you're like, oh god. And then they sing the song, and you're like, fuck this.
And Jimmy's dead.
And then Kit turns the corner, and you're like, God, so many emotions.
Yeah, and there's a couple of times I cry.
Oh yeah.
I was getting choked up even. So my new thing, I think, now that I've isolated this after seeing Wonder Woman and then hearing people talk about it. Many women, after seeing Wonder Woman and having like women sort of kicking butt kind of thing, and you get these chills, in those kind of like internal goosebumps, I call them, and you're just like, oh, and it's just like a lot of women who I've known have seen Wonder Woman have these feelings because it's the first time we've been able to see like a woman really like kicking butt in an awesome way and not being like sort of like overtly sexualized doing it or something. And I get these same feelings when I watch the baseball montages of the women kicking butt in this movie. It was the same feeling.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way too?
Sure. I mean, I always have, and I always loved those movies where that thing happens.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so magical. But yeah, they really are. And I read in the trivia that they all did their own baseball stunts.
Wow.
Obviously, a lot of the extras were actually baseball players, but the main actresses all, except for Gena Davis, like had trained a lot before this movie. And somebody else was cast as Gena's role. I forget who. Maybe been one or two people, but she came on kind of late, so she didn't get the full training that everybody else did.
So good.
But apparently she really threw herself into it and was out throwing like people and out batting people by the end who had been training for months, and she had just come in. So she was obviously a natural talent herself.
They were so good. And like what I love, the music that they use in this movie is all kind of like 40s bass, so it's a lot of like that big band. I will use, if you don't know what that is, I'll say it's like the Chips Ahoy commercial. Oh
man, I loved that jam. That's a good jam. That's a famous song. What song is it? Rhapsody in Blues? No.
What is that song?
The Entertainer? No. That's it's not that at all.
No. So anyway, it's like big band music, and they use that for all the baseball montages, and it's so good. The trumpets. Oh, and then the one at the end when they're in like the World Series, and it's like super tense.
Snail biting.
It's like Sweetie and I were like doing this, like the soundtrack. Basically, like there's this like it's the horn section. Remember, it's like this like trumpet comes in, like when it like Kit's all like freaking out in the dugout, and she's like having a panic attack, and it's like da na 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 na. With like the horns, and then there's this like string part that's like, and we both are like doing like mini little violins on the couch.
Great. It was great.
We had a good time watching this.
Yeah, we did.
We were so tired, but we were like,
it was worth it. Yeah. Oh, but man, that last game, and this is, I'm pretty sure the main reason I have a hard time with sports movies is because it's too much anxiety for me. It's like, it's good. It's like a good rush of adrenaline, excitement. But I just have I have a hard time watching real sports games that are important in the Olympics, especially. Ugh, forget it.
My God.
And I just can't.
Live
It's
Olympics.
just so much adrenaline like coursing, and I can't even imagine like if I'm feeling that, then what like the players or whatever or the athletes are feeling.
How you do that. Like that when Kit has to like get that run or not, and then they lose, and it's all on your shoulders. I don't know how you deal with that sort of like pressure.
You have a weird panic attack in the dugout, and you go.
She's like all dirty,
and then there's that beat, dun dun dun, dun dun dun. Oh, so good. but they fucking lose, and it's upsetting. So I was thinking of, so this is obviously a clear case where sports movies with a sad ending, and by sad ending I mean the team that you are rooting for the whole time and that you were behind the whole time loses.
Right, and I want to say like it's like kind of happy because at least someone wins, but like you're not really happy because like you don't really like Kit. So like not that I don't like Kit, but I was like fuck, like I'm
still never happy when it happens, and I hate that other team, and I hate, like you said, I hate that catcher.
That fucking catcher sucks.
And the base the coach who's the baby, the giant baby from Look Who's Talking. Like, it's so upsetting. And the Peaches just did such a good season, and
had such good camaraderie on that team, right? So
I mean, and we don't know what the other teams had, but
I'm sure they did too. Yeah. And that's I think the other great thing about this movie is the supporting players of all the teams are so good characters. They each have like their own little story, and some of them are more famous people, so you know them a little bit more. But even the little bit player ones are like awesome. So, do you have a favorite player? Well, okay. Obviously, Gena Davis is my favorite of the sisters, but I was a huge Madonna fan, and this is my favorite movie acting one that she's done because she's done a wide variety of acting roles. I love All the Way May. I think she's awesome. She's just so cool, and I wanted to be her so badly. And she was brunette Madonna, which I always think is the hottest, and she does it occasionally, but like not a lot. And I think brunette Madonna, obviously because I'm a brunette, whenever she did that, I was like, yes, come back to your roots.
That's pretty great. Pretty great. So there's May.
So I picked May.
Okay. So there's also, let's see. Yeah, I mean, as soon as I asked that question, I was like, I guess I pick May, just because she has so many good lines. And like,
I'd get her baseball card in a second.
There's this great part where they're saying the announcement, like, ladies, like, if you're not wearing this uniform, you can't play with us. Also, there's no smoking or drinking or men. And May's like, oh, fuck this. And she like gets up out of the circle and like goes to leave. And it's pretty great. And it's just such a classic line or like scene. But also Doris Murphy, number 22 or whatever, is Rosie O'Donnell, who is also, this is a really great role for her.
She's so good.
She is just like 100% in that character, and it's like half Rosie O'Donnell but half this Doris Murphy, but it's really great. And she's very butch but has a mean husband named Charlie.
Boyfriend.
Oh, sorry, boyfriend. But she's a riot. Her and May are friends. They met because her dad, Doris's dad, has a dance club, which is a euphemism. Maybe for topless dancing?
No. So May was she calls it taxi dancing. So men pay to dance with her. She's like, I don't want to pay 10 cents so some drunk can slob all over me.
Slob a gin all over me. Okay, that's weird.
So it's
that's what that was?
Taxi dancing, yeah. Oh. So it's like someone pays, like she's the taxi, quote unquote. Ew. But she doesn't have sex with them.
I know, but it's still like a weird thing. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So anyway, Doris was the bouncer in that club, which women can't play baseball, but they can be bouncers in these taxi dancing clubs. Interesting plot twist.
She's just really fun in this, and like I've always loved Rosie O'Donnell's kind of like movie roles. When Sleepless in Seattle as her as a friend is so fucking funny. I love her in that. She's a gem. I love her.
She's a gem. Yeah, she's great.
There's
also some bit players. Okay. So there's Betty Spaghetti.
Love Betty Spaghetti.
Who is Penny? That's Penny Marshall's daughter. She is really nice and sweet. Has a very sad moment later on in the movie, but apparently she's called that because she makes spaghetti.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool
talent.
Sweet.
There is Evelyn.
Emily Omelet.
There's Evelyn, the blonde-haired one, who is still Will Angel's mother. Yep. Who we decided in this one, she's really not a great ball player.
Horrible.
I'm confused why she made the team. She makes several errors throughout, but two big ones that really cost them a lot. And she'd
never have been in the outfield. She was horrible at that position. So maybe like
give her
switch
a different
her up.
Position. She could be a
Move
shortstop.
her to second or something. I don't know. Like, she was horrible.
So weird. There is Helen, who was like made the coffee and the like. I'm thinking of the promo where they're like introducing people. Yep. And then Alice is like the also catcher who is like Canadian, who Jimmy is always really mean to. Yeah. and it's hilarious. Sue Ellen, the really beautiful former Miss Georgia pitcher, and I think those are all the main ones.
Sure, the one who can't read.
Oh, Shirley Baker.
Shirley Baker.
She can't read, so she's looking for her name on the list.
And Marla Hooch.
And Marla Hooch. Who's I forget her position.
I forget what Marla is.
DH. I don't know. But yeah, that's the team. But yeah, all great gals, and I love the way that they do the flash, where they place the flashback or the flash. Yeah, the flashback. So you spend the whole movie with these people, and then you go back to the baseball field, and then you meet all the old ladies, her teammates as old ladies, and now you form this connection with them all through the movie. Yeah. And now you're able to make that connection too, and be like, oh, it's Doris and May, and blah,
and
blah.
like I said, they look exactly like them, so they do such a good job with that, and they give always like one little hint as to who the person is, because Dottie. You know, it's been 50 years, and she last saw them when they were in their 20s, and now they're in like their 70s or 80s. So it's like, okay, like you would have changed, but they all have these little personalities, and they say little things that remind her, like, oh, yeah, it's adorable.
It's cute. Love it. It's very well done.
Yeah.
But so back on this sports movies with sad endings.
Yeah.
So the only other one I could think of was Cool Runnings. Do you think? Can you think of any other?
That's fucking sad. That one. Sad sports movie endings.
Like where they don't win whatever they've been striving for. Do they win in The Cutting Edge? Do they end up winning? Okay.
Remember, and they like in the credits they like show the box that the dad had that was like always for her Olympic gold medal, and the medals.
Spoiler.
All right, they win. Good point. We should do some research on that because I don't know.
I'm sure there's more that I just can't think of.
Yeah, that's a super bummer.
Yeah, it's always just so stressful because you're never, after Cool Runnings happened, I was like, fuck, I'm not safe. Like you always think sports movies are supposed to have happy endings and that they'll win, but Cool Runnings really changed the game, man. It really changed the game, shook it up. So now you're just never sure. You're like, they could win, or they could like crash land before the finish line and then have to carry their bobsled over the fucking finish line, and then you cry.
But in the case of Cool Runnings, that's like what really happened.
Whatever. It's still like very upsetting.
And this wasn't like, obviously they based this was an actual historical, like there was a women's baseball team, but the whole inner working story with Kit and Dottie and that whole whatever is all made up. So they could have gone a happy ending way with it.
There
for
was
sure.
A player they based this on named Dottie something, who was like named the Queen of Diamonds, but there wasn't this whole like sister backstory yet. But
I like that though, because it makes it a little bit different.
Right, because otherwise it would just be a team.
Because it wasn't about winning. It really was about the women doing their thing and making these friendships. And making this like moment in history for women everywhere.
Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Yes. So fun fact. So when the recruiter comes to the dairy to try to get them to come to the tryouts, he says you'll get $75 a week. So this was in 1943. That's a lot of money. So I looked it up, and it's about equivalent to $1,000 today. So they would be making $1,000 a week. We had that kind of money during the war, though, when like shit was rationed, and we're still shelling out $1,000 to ball players a week. Crazy.
Well, Mr. Harvey still had all his money, and like they were making money on the tickets. And how much did they pay the men? I'm sure like way more. Hello, we're back to this. It's like
totally.
a circular discussion.
I just thought that's pretty
impressive.
Though.
Favorite scene?
I was trying to. So these movies, I always have a hard time picking a favorite scene because I love
or most memorable
all of the scenes so much.
You, like remember the most?
You go.
So I have an answer for each of those. My favorite and my most memorable. Ready? Okay, what do you want first?
Favorite.
Okay, my favorite is the Suds Bucket dance scene.
Again, Roadhouse calls the Suds Bucket.
Wanted to be Madonna more than anything. I took swing dancing a little bit, and like unfortunately only had one male dancer in my entire like dance academy. So we had to like do swing dancing with a girl partner, and so we couldn't do any of those awesome lifts.
Did you do it with Rebe?
Probably. So the Suds Bucket is this cool like dance club on the side of the road, Roadhouse, one of those joints. And the girls can't drink or go and like meet men, right? So they have to poison the dinner of Miss Cuthbert, the basically like their little like house mom, let's say, good word. And so they poison her dinner. She's like puking forever. And then they sneak out and they go to this suds bucket. And because May's a taxi dancer, as we were just talking about, she's like a professional swing dancer. And she dances with all these guys and they're like drinking beer. And all the other girls are having so much fun too. Like Kit meets this guy and they like kiss on the cheek. And then that's where Marla meets Nelson.
I'm singing a Nelson.
What's the song? Had to be you. That part's so good. So they're having so much fun. And I just always, you know, I've obviously have my share of going to clubs and getting drunk and doing like grinding and all that shit that we have now, which is like so depressing because what they used to do is have a couple beers and do swing dancing and their cool little saddle shoes.
It seems dangerous if you're drinking a lot and you're like, now I'm gonna lift this woman over my head. I don't know.
So much fun. So I love that. And then Dottie doesn't go because she's married and she doesn't need to do all that stuff.
She's a wet blanket.
She's a little bit of a
biggest wet blanket in the center.
But she's an awesome teammate because she goes and hitches a ride with that part I've never understood. This like 12-year-old with a roadster hitches a ride with him to the suds bucket to warn all the girls. And he's like, why don't we slip in the back and you can make a man out of me?
How about I knock you around for a little while?
Can we do both? And so she goes and warns the girls so they like get out of there. But
yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, I love
great
it.
scene.
And then my most memorable is one I always remember and the one that still makes me cry the hardest is when Betty Spaghetti finds out George, her husband, has died. So I'm sure this is if you've seen any World War II films, the way they would tell you that your son or your husband or your brother was killed. You get a telegram. So the guy would show up and like everyone knew if you saw that telegram guy awful news, right? So the telegram guy comes and they're all getting ready for the game. They're all pumped up. They're like doing really well in this like run of games. And the guy's like, oh man, like he's so nonchalant about it.
Worst telegram Grand Union guy ever.
And he's like, oh man, I don't know who this is for. Like I'm gonna have to go back to the office and figure it out. And Tom Hanks like grabs the telegram. It's such a good scene. And like pushes the guys like, get the hell out of here. Like you don't just come in here and be like, whoops, I'm going to tell one of you your husband's dead, but I don't know who it is. And now you have to wait. Like forget it. So then Tom Hanks like opens the telegram and you can just see him be like, oh God, like I have to deliver this news now. And he, at this point, they're really close. He loves these girls. Like he's turned around as a coach and he's enjoying himself so much and has had such a relationship with his whole team. So he's walking towards them, and it's Dottie and Betty Spaghetti, and you don't know who it is because Dottie has Bob, who's in the war, and she hasn't heard from Bob in 3 weeks. You just found this out, so like maybe Bob's dead. And so they're both sitting together. You don't know who it is. Who is it? Who is it? And then he just goes, I'm sorry, Betty. And then it's this like really sad music. George! And they're all comforting her, and then like Tom Hanks like brings it and like gives her a
and
big
then
hug.
I always lose it when Doris, like you see like a giant tear fall from Rosie O'Donnell's face and I'm just like, oh God, even Doris crying.
Oh God, it's so sad. And just like how people had to deal, I just cannot imagine having to deal with that. You're just going about your day and someone brings you a letter and like the person you love more than anything in the world is fucking dead and you're never going to see them again and died somewhere far, far away.
I bet Jimmy feels really shitty for ripping up George's baseball card earlier.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but I remember like I was just so touched by that as like a 10-year-old when I watched this, and I still cry to this day. I've seen it like 100 times. So.
Yeah, totally most memorable. I would agree with those. I also love all the baseball montages. I know I'm probably in the minority, but as a small girl, I loved those uniforms so much, and I'd be like, oh, they're so cool, and they get to wear a pink one. So another thing I wanted to bring up is that when I was watching this, I guess I would classify this as sweetie confusion. I thought there were only like 4 teams in this league, and I was like, well, big deal they made it to the World Series. There's only 4 fucking teams. They only had to be the best out of like 2 of those. Right. And then they could make it like big deal. But when I was reading the Wikipedia article, there were like a bunch of teams actually in the league. So they were still all in the Midwest, but there were so many. There were about like 15.
Well, how many do they show?
4.
Yeah,
that's why I thought that. So they show Racine is like the one they show all the time, which is the yellow one. There's the green, the South Bell Sox or something, the blue. Blue, and then I think there's like a pale green uniform, which might be the Kenosha Comets or whatever. But there were a whole bunch of other ones. Oh, and I meant to bring my phone down so I could read you some of the cool names, but they're all like vaguely sexist names of like teams. So I mean, if you think of it, like the Peaches,
Bells,
oh, the Bells, It's just like, and it's
Yikes.
similar to like the WNBA, which is they've gotten better. But I think like the Monarchs, like, yeah, of course, the women's team gets to be named after like butterflies. Ugh. And just, I'm just kind of like, can we have cool names?
Yeah, with that.
They're not all like that, but it just stuck out. But I thought that was fascinating that there were so many. It makes the World Series bid much more impressive now that I know that.
If we're just going with Sweet Confusion, I have 2 that are pretty good. Good segue. So laughing at myself. Okay, so the part where it's funny because I just explained this to someone when we were watching this. I'm like, wow, and I just got it in that moment, which I was really proud of. So they go to the finishing school, and then the woman looks everyone up and down and like gives her assistant like basically stuff that they're gonna need to work on. So like Alice like needs to pluck her eyebrows, so she's like, eyebrows, there should be 2.
Which is such a that's like in every like Pretty Woman
about eyebrows,
or not Pretty Woman, sorry, Princess Diaries. There's a similar one. It's like always there should be 2 is always like the joke. You're like,
what about Frida Kahlo?
I know.
So anyway, so they go to Marla, and so like Dottie's like, oh, beautiful, beautiful, nothing to do with you, the beauty queen, nothing. Even Kit, she's like,
first of all, she hits like 4 in a row that are like top notch, like the beauty queen, Dottie, Kit, and then Marla. Yeah. It's like, well,
you're right. And then so the woman's like, what do you recommend? And the woman goes, a lot of night games. So I thought night games meant like she needs to like hook up with a lot of dudes at night, like games at night. Like I took it in like the sexual vein. As a young person, which like, really troubles me.
That's sexual and weird because I don't know why are you basing that conclusion based on the Cardinals games?
I don't know.
So we have like the Cape League, and when we were little, it was like the big thing to do when you're in middle school to go to the Cardinals games because all the boys would be there, and then you always hear about like some slutty girl making out with a boy behind the swing set or whatever at the Cardinals games. Is that what you were?
What can I tell a story about that? No,
yeah.
You just brought that up. So I used to hang out with these girls who were only like a year older than me, but they like were trouble, and mom like did not like me hanging out with them. So, but they were like, "We're going to the Cardinals game. Want to come?" I'm like, "Okay." So they're like, "Make sure you wear your bathing suit under your clothes because like boys bring water balloons and they will throw them at us, and our shirts are gonna get all wet, and you don't want someone to be able to like see your boobs underneath your shirt." Okay, I did not have boobs yet. First of all, I was like in 4th grade. I was flat as a pancake. Number 2, my mom saw that I had my bathing suit on underneath my clothes before she was going to drop me off. And she's like, what is that? And I was like, oh, nothing. She's like, why are you wearing your bathing suit underneath your clothes? I'm like, oh, and I told her the story. She's like, you take that off right now. She wouldn't let me wear my bathing suit underneath my shorts and t-shirt. Isn't that funny?
But she let you go to the game still?
Yeah,
I feel like
did.
She'd be like,
and this is what happened. This kid who I guess maybe he liked me now that I'm talking about it. Threw gum in my hair, and I had long hair down to my butt, remember? And my mom had to cut it out. Oh, it was awful.
He liked you and he threw gum in your hair?
That's how they showed you.
Wow. Cool. Glad I missed that.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Wow.
Cardinals games.
Nutty.
That's crazy that they would drop us off there by ourselves.
I know. So we were just
4th
like on
grade?
our own, like, woo, and you'd make the rounds.
Did you go in
like,
that young?
A couple. No. When did I go? I think it was mostly middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like such a big deal.
Oh my God, I would have been like 9 years old.
I know.
That's freaky.
Wow.
Yeah, and you would just walk around like you wouldn't actually watch the game.
No one watches the game.
You'd like hang out by the bathrooms. Remember those
yes.
bathrooms?
Ooh, is that where people got drugs?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Anyway, where was this? Oh yeah. Okay. So then the other one was when Jimmy is. They're like, Mr. Dugan. These kids come up to Jimmy and they're like, can you sign our baseball? And he like writes on it, and the kid reads it out loud, and he goes, avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan. Did not understand what that was at all. And I didn't even really realize what that line was until we watched it again tonight. And I was like, the clap.
It's a really good line.
Yeah.
I also wrote that one down.
Avoid the clap.
Avoid the clap.
The clap. The clap.
No, not that clap. Not that one. Wait, the clap is chlamydia.
Ooh,
no.
Good question.
Or something,
gonorrhea.
or something completely different.
It's chlamydia or gonorrhea.
Okay. Well, it's an STD. It's not to be fooled with. So yeah, but there's a lot of great lines in this. So obviously the classic one that everyone thinks of is there's no crying in baseball. So Evelyn fucks up again, or the first time or whatever. And Jimmy's like, is really mean to her, and she starts crying. He's like, "Are you crying? There's no crying in baseball." And then the umpire comes, and he's like, "What's the problem, Jimmy?" And he's like, "She's crying. There's no crying in baseball." And he's like, he's like, "You treat each of these girls as you would your mother." And Jimmy's like, "Yeah, okay." He's like, "Did anybody ever tell you like a little penis with a hat on?" Which is so true, because the hats in this movie, and it's not just his hat, it's all the hats,
the women's hats,
but especially the umpires are like little condom hats.
The women's hats bug the shit out of me.
Yeah, and the women's hats are very tiny. Evelyn, there's that scene where he's yelling at her. Her hat is barely resting on her giant blonde
all
hair.
Of them, because I think they have super stylish 40s like waves and big poofy hair.
They have to wear like makeup and look
so
pretty.
They couldn't cover it, so it was basically just like a show hat. Dottie actually is one of the only ones who wears her hat kind of like actually how it's supposed to be worn.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because she's a catcher and she has to wear it backwards most of the time anyway. So you're going to wear like a backwards cap like way far off your head. But that bugged the shit out of me. All of them with those weird hats halfway off their head.
Useless.
Bizarre.
So there's that line. Another one that I think our dad especially liked is when the bus driver quits after Stillwell Angel, who's not an angel, he's a demon child, is like this little fat kid who runs around and can only be like calmed down by chocolate bars. And he decides to cover the bus driver's eyes with his hands, and the bus driver freaks out and he's like, "Oh, I quit." And he walks off into the middle of nowhere. I don't know where he's going or where he thinks he's going, but he's off. And so Miss Cuthbert tries to go after him to get him. She's like, Mr. Lulu, you can't quit. The girls, they have a game. And he's like, well, and he picks up this like huge.
This is the part that I brought up today. I'm like, what?
He picks up this huge fistful of dirt and just throws it in Miss Cuthbert's face. And you're like, whoa, that seemed unnecessary. But anyway, so her face is all dirty, and so she gets back on the bus, and Jimmy's sleeping. So she's like, Mr. Dugan, and he's like, "What is it, baby?" And then grabs her and like makes out with her, and she's like, "Rrr!" And then he opens his eyes, and they both scream, and Tom Hanks has this like the perfect like Tom Hanks scream, and then he goes, "Oh!" And then
he like swishes with whiskey
swishes with whiskey
flask
and spits it out on the bus. And he's like, "What's going on? Why are we stopped?" And then
Lou quit.
Who's Lou? The driver. So then he looks at Miss Cuthbert and he's like, "By the way, you were wonderful in The Wizard of Oz," or whatever.
And the lady
loved you in The Wizard of Oz.
Does really look like Mrs. Gulch.
She does,
from The Wizard of Oz.
but
she's
poor
sweet.
lady, and she was really very sweet. And I feel bad that they poisoned
and
her.
had an amazing collection of little hats.
She did.
She had
I
really
didn't even
tiny
notice.
little like wedge cap sort of hats, classic wedge caps, but like shrunken versions that you would just like pin on the top of your head. It was like weird lady hats that you just like weren't were just decorative. What is that called? A fascinator almost, so that you like are just pinning onto your head. They don't do any shade, provide any shade or anything like actual hats do.
Yeah.
True. Love that. I miss the hat culture. I think I've said this many times on the podcast. I love a good hat.
The good old days. The good old days are gone.
Bill Pullman or Bill Paxton, League of Their Own.
Always
Ready?
a game. Bill Pullman.
Yes. R.I.P. Bill Paxton though.
Wait, are we playing a game?
No. No, just
I was like, where are the other ones? Okay, I'll play it with you. Twister.
Bill Paxton.
Independence Day.
Bill Pullman.
Aliens.
Bill Paxton.
Terminator.
Bill Paxton.
Wow. Okay, good.
While you were sleeping.
Pullman.
Yes. Yeah. He's okay in this. You know, when watching this when I was little, I really wanted her to dump Bob and just hang out with Jimmy instead.
I know. I was thinking that too. I'm very shocked that they didn't cross over into that romance relationship with her and Jimmy.
I think it was there. You're supposed to think that was like brewing a little.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if he had died, that would have happened, right?
Probably. I don't know, but still like the baseball thing.
But they were better as
like,
friends, and because they were real like equals, you know, like they were both real smart.
Yeah, he actually saw her as like a formidable like opponent,
and the first woman that I think he was able to see like that, because he was a real womanizer. I mean, he was drunk all the time, but like that's how he saw women and how he treated women. Right. And I think just him being a coach and seeing all these really great, very smart, very talented women, and yeah, and it's so heartwarming at the end. So at the end, they lose the World Series. But he's like, oh, yeah, I was offered a coaching job for a men's team in some other place. He's like, I turned him down. He's like, I'm going to stay a coach for like the women's league. Yeah, I got a job. He really enjoyed it that much.
See,
Such a
women
good character
are
arc with Jimmy. Love it. And that part, so at the end, wait, did we talk about this yet? Where they go to the Hall of Fame, we cry a lot? Do we talk about it now?
Sure.
Okay. So like we said, like they go to the Hall of Fame, they cut the ribbon and they all go in. And again, it's like this like great like like all these like horns playing. I don't know what the horns do to me, but they just do it. And it's like all these black and white pictures from the whole movie. So that's like
You're like, hey, I remember that scene.
Oh my God. They just basically like stills from the movie. And then it's all the people. So like the guy, the John Lovitz recruiter guy is there standing
Still
next to his
alive,
picture.
even though he smokes like 8 cigars a day.
The little assistant guy we didn't bring up, David Strathairn, who's such a good actor.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Yeah, Mr. Lowenstein. Yeah. He is like their little like, not like manager, but like what would you call that? Like I forget. He just like organized the whole
I forget
thing.
what his actual
I think it was his
job
idea
title
to have
was.
the women's league. And he was just really rooting for them, and he was just so sweet. So he like really kept the league going all the years because he really believed in the women's talent and thought they were so good.
Right, because they were just going to shut it down as soon as the war was over. But he convinced Mr. Harvey to keep it going.
So he has like the same glasses, so whatever. And so it's all seen through Dottie as she's sort of like walking around the whole place. So she first she gets introduced to Stewell first. I think Stewell first, yeah. So this guy or someone comes up to her and is like, Dottie, do you know who that is? And it's like a older man, but not as old as them. So he goes, and she's like, I don't know who is that? Like I don't remember him. And then he goes, you're gonna lose, and she's like, Stewell Angel. So he's like in his 50s now. I don't know. 40s. And she's like, oh, is your mom here? And she's kind of like looking around, and she's not. And he goes, Mom died. Oh, fireworks! and so he was like a little brat and a little kid, but like was with them for the whole time because like she had to take him. His deadbeat dad like couldn't like take care of him.
My husband says he's too busy reading the want ads, and then I should just take him with me and shut up about it.
God, loser. So, but then the part that always gets me is like she always said this was the happiest she'd ever been in her whole life. Waterworks. And it's like the guy who plays Francis, who's like kind of like a goober dude, and he's always playing silly stuff, but he's really serious in this one, and he's really good.
Really pulls at the heartstrings.
Yeah, so good. So then the other sad part. Sorry. Do you want to say it, or I'm taking over?
And then Dottie like turns a corner and she's reading the stuff, and there's a big picture. This is actually before they get into the actual Women's Hall of Fame, because this was the regular Baseball Hall of Fame. She was looking around, and there's this big picture of Jimmy Dugan. It's like Jimmy Dugan, and then it has like his bio, and it like the camera like pans down to the end, and then the very end it's like death like 1985 or something, and then they play that sad music that's like dee 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 dee.
Yeah, it's like this proud music, and then it gets like real sad
gets really
once
sad.
you figure out he's died. But I wonder if I think when you're watching this for the first time, I think you think when there's a reunion, you're like, Bob's dead. And if Jimmy was going to be there, maybe they would like go out for coffee.
I'm surprised he lived as long as he did, because I always thought when I was little that he died much
Me too, like in the
sooner
yeah,
because of
like
his
the 50s.
drinking.
Yeah.
But I guess that wasn't the case.
He
lived
cleaned himself up. He liked that job now. But yeah, I always, in my mind as like a kid, I really wanted them to get together because I thought they were like
Oh well. And then I love the part where they sing the song. So the woman starts it again, and then they all sing it. And I always think like, I wonder if they. I mean, that was only a song that the Rockford Peaches came up with. The other teams didn't know. So I wonder if like the other women on the teams were like, "What's this song?" Like we didn't have a song. What the fuck?
None of the teams were as cool as the Peaches.
They really weren't.
Real.
Where was that bullshit catcher on the Racine Bells? Was she at the reunion? I don't know.
Ugh, hope not.
She's so annoying. She's like, all right, put it right past her. Put it right past this glamour past.
She just has all these dumb little, like not funny lines, just annoying lines.
Yeah.
I'm like, get the fuck out of here, you suck.
I know.
So mean. Okay, so let's, I guess, talk about the Dottie question.
Oh my god, we didn't even talk about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the end part. So like I said, we saw Dottie do this play another time before, and she holds on to the bar. It's actually that annoying catcher we hate that runs into her.
Right.
That this happens, and she holds on to the ball even though she takes a really hard hit. So this made me question, like, the last few times I've watched this movie, I've really struggled with the idea of whether or not Dottie drops the ball at the end on purpose, or if it was real time. She actually just let it go and was like, whoa, Kit did it. Yeah. Or if she on purpose was like, I want to do this for Kit, blah, blah, blah. So most of the time when I'm watching it, I'm of the mind that she did drop it on purpose. But part of me still struggles greatly with that, because I just don't think that Dottie would sacrifice let her entire team down because of this thing with her sister. Yeah. I thought that Dottie would want Kit to have won it on her own merit, and that she wouldn't want to just give Kit something just because, and that she would want Kit to have earned it. And the evidence that I always saw for that was that she tells Sue Ellen, like, how we can strike Kit out. Like, why would she have given her that crucial bit of info if she didn't want to try to beat Kit fair and square, you know?
But I don't think it was almost like a knowing thing that she was doing. Like, she didn't plan that far ahead. Like, it wasn't like first-degree murder.
Right. She didn't know that Kit was going to be, like, running. That was going to be the thing.
I think she made a split-second decision when she's holding that, until she was, like, holding that ball and she's getting ready to ram into her. I think it was, like, literally, like, she just thought about it in, like, 1 second when she was going down. Like, maybe I'll let this ball go one time for a good cause, let's say. But I think that's the brilliance of this movie and how it was directed and how, like, the story goes, is that you don't know. There's no definitive. You have no idea.
Right. I changed my previous answer. I mean, my previous question that I would want to ask Penny Marshall if I got to talk to her on the phone, it would be this instead.
And she probably doesn't even know.
I hate those
things. That's what makes it so great. So yeah, so I'm definitely in the mindset that, like, I think she did it on purpose. But
yeah, I mean, that reasoning makes sense.
But I like that there's another option that you're like, maybe that's just the way it happened.
Yeah, it just really was.
Because even really, really good players mess up sometimes, and that's the thing about sports. And what I kind of always, even though I'm not the greatest sports fan, my favorite thing about sports is that, like, the best people can have the worst day, and the not as great people can have the best day of their life and, like, win everything. Yeah. You know, like, it's awesome. Like, the fact that there's an underdog, like, phenomenon in sports where you can, like, come from behind is the coolest thing ever. And what I think makes people love sports so much is that it's not like, it's not a shoo-in. It's never always going to be what it is, you know?
Sure. So. I mean, if you like that kind of thing, why not?
Okay, we're running a little long here, but I just want to bring up 2 more things. I want to bring up the slight awkward nod to racism in this movie, and, like, why they chose to put that in here at all. Yeah, it's just feel like something that they felt like they wanted to just, like, oh, like, we know about this, and, like, make sure we include this. Even though this, like, if this movie was made now, I almost would understand why they did it, because people are so like, why didn't you mention this and this?
Why
and this?
Aren't there black people in this?
Yeah. So they did this one little thing where, like, a ball, it's like they're practicing or something, and the ball, like, goes way out, and there's this group of black women there. I don't know if they're watching the game. They must have been watching the game.
They have, like, their own, like,
they can't sit with everybody
quote
else.
unquote colored section.
So the woman, like, gets the ball and, like, Gena Davis is like, over here, and gets, like, really close to her, so it's, like, a little bit patronizing, and the woman, like, throws it, like, super hard, and it goes way over Gena Davis's head and goes to Sue Ellen, and Sue Ellen goes in her glove, and she's like, ow, ooh, man, like, good arm. And the black lady's just like, yeah, and, like, goes like that.
And she does, like, a nod.
And, like, so, but, like, obviously for black people, but especially black women, so it's like, all black people had, like 0 rights at all, and were, like, you know, like, in special color sections, segregation, and, like, all that stuff. But black women being, like, the absolute bottom rung of that, being, like, not only that, but you have, like, no rights as a woman either. Mm-hmm. So it was, like, kind of like this, I don't know, it made me feel, like, uncomfortable. And, like, if you've ever seen the biopic about not Jackie Robinson, that's good. Oh, have I seen that? No. But this is The Runner. Jesse Owens. It was not that good of a movie. It's called Run, but, like, it takes place a little bit earlier than that. So in 1936, when he went to the Olympics in Berlin, and there's obviously tons of racism there because he was in Nazi Germany, whatever. But when he comes back, like, he is treated like shit. He wins all of these gold medals, breaks all of these records, and he still has to take the service elevator when he goes to hotels at things where they're, like, appreciating him and he's getting awards. Like, it's bullshit, the level of racism with these great athletes and all the stuff they were doing. So I'll just say, like, just weird. I don't even know why they put that in there if they weren't going to, like, deal with anything else. Number 2, Madonna and her soundtrack song. What do you feel about the song This Used to Be My Playground? Go.
I think I liked it as a child, but listening to it now, I'm like, this is the cheesiest fucking song.
I hate that song.
So, this used to be my playground.
Used to be.
This used to be my childhood dream.
This used to be the place I ran to whenever I was in need.
And why do they always say?
So, like, before when we talked about Men in Black and how we really miss Will Smith being in movies, and then, you know, hands down, he'd always be singing a song on the soundtrack. Probably always one that played during the credits roll, right? Same with Madonna. Every movie she's in, she's like, they're like, you're going to sing a song, right?
Did she do one for Desperately Seeking Susan? Or?
Yeah.
What was
Who's
that girl?
No,
that was Who's That Girl?
What's the Desperately Seeking Susan one?
Maybe there wasn't one.
Yeah, we should look that up.
But yeah, Vita. Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Well, that is a musical, so that's like a...
You're right. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. Dick Tracy, she did that one in the
my
club.
God, Hanky Panky.
Yeah,
That's my favorite song. Nothing like a good spanky. Don't take out handkerchiefs. I don't want
inappropriate song.
I just want.
I remember.
Elaine Chase Answers.
Oh my God! I remember when that song came on. We were driving to Maine, and you were like obsessed. You like cranked it all the way up, and I was like, "What is this song? I didn't remember it." Oh, so funny.
She's good in that too. Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, Madonna, miss
We
you.
miss you. Miss that bitch.
Miss that bitch. We should have a segment called Miss That
Bitch.
Yeah.
Good one. Anything else?
Nah, I think that's good. I love this movie. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just one of those definitely one of those movies I feel like that if it's on TV, you always watch it. Obviously I saw it I had a zillion movies to pick from on the plane
remember a whole baseball category?
There was a whole baseball category, but there were also all these movies that I had never seen that I probably should have. I can't think of any.
The guy next to me was watching Moneyball, and I watched that with no sound too.
You watched 2 movies at the same time?
I just kept going back and forth.
You scamp. Wow, yeah. But this one, I had all these movies.
What's the one with Susan Sarandon and
Bull Durham?
Yeah, I watched that one too.
What the fuck? No, but yeah, I had all these movies to pick from, and of course I picked the one that I've seen like 50 times, which is it's classic me, if you will. I'm always just like, I'd rather watch this movie I've seen a zillion times than this other movie.
It's good
that
to
might
fall
be
asleep
good.
to, because whenever you wake up, you're not like missing a plot
and it's just
point.
like comforting, and yeah, I liked it a lot. But yeah, such a good flick.
Cool. Also,
cool.
Jimmy Dugan is the worst shaver ever.
I know, he's always cutting himself.
What is the point of that?
And it's like a piece of. I'm not an expert on shaving, but so I know they had probably the actual razors back then, or the razor blade.
Straight ones.
Right. So you cut yourself all the time. But I thought maybe because he was like a drunk, he was like always like cutting himself. But at the end, he wasn't drinking.
Right.
And he still had it, so I don't know. I don't get it. If a man could explain that to us, not to be sexist,
or just a weird character choice. Like, why do they?
Yeah. And is it like a little piece of paper? I always thought it was like shaving cream that he forgot to shave off when I was little. I didn't get that.
I've used that technique if I cut myself with my shaving my legs. One little dab of a paper, tissue paper.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, makes sense. Wow, deep. It's getting deep.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for listening, as always. Please give us a follow on Twitter at The Sweetie Club and on Instagram at Large Marge Sent Us. Thank you, as always, for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.